Welcome to the Accidental Business Owner podcast, the show that lifts the lid on what it really takes to grow, scale and successfully exit your business without losing your sanity, soul or savings. Real stories, raw lessons, proven strategies. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hi, I'm Jay Allen from TrueNORTH, delighted to be able to welcome you to this episode of the Accidental Business Owner podcast, where today we're talking about the 1 year from now test. What do I mean by that, Jay? What do you mean 1 year from now? Well, at the time of recording this, you're just launched into the new year. We've just entered into 2026, and it's perhaps the first day or so of you being back in work after those New Year's celebrations. So there's lots of enthusiasm, there's lots of motivation, there's lots of inspiration with regards to where we're going to go and what we're going to do over the next 12 months. I wonder if also, like myself, you've spent a little bit of time, perhaps between Christmas and New Year, simply contemplating and reviewing and revising, perhaps a little bit of consideration with regards to the year that we've just had and looked back on 2025, perhaps recognising for a moment or two some of the highlights of the year, some of the successes that you've had along the way, but also reflecting on perhaps some of the challenges that we've faced and how we've learnt to overcome. But what I mean by the 1 year from now test is, as we enter into this new year and a new sense of enthusiasm for all of the ideas and suggestions and that infamous New Year's resolution, all of the things that we've come up with in the sense of now. We've come from a place of thinking about being in business right now. We've sat there perhaps with a little bit of eggnog or a glass of champagne or maybe a wee dram of something that you've toasted in the new year. You've perhaps set a New Year's resolution, either personal or professional, but you've done all of the thinking from a sense of what is yet to come. And I'm here to share with you that is the first blocker in preventing you from making the biggest changes and the biggest improvements, the biggest progress over the next 12 months. Let me quickly share as to why that is. You see, right now, as we're watching or listening to this podcast, you're hopefully in the moment. And whether you're concentrating on my every word or whether there's a multitude of other things going on in your life right now, and this happens to be on in the background whilst you're multitasking, there's a whole opportunity of being able to absorb this content from a state of here and now, taking on all of the things that I'm sharing with you, but from a place of in the moment. And the risk to you for only thinking in that manner is that everything that you've done that has led you to where you are in this moment is now playing a part in your thinking to determine as to what is yet possible. Let me just quickly suggest or rephrase that to be able to help you to understand it even further. Everything that you have done, all of the years of experience, all of the highlights and the lowlights and the challenges and the goals and the successes and the struggles, the failures that we've had along the way, all of the things that have happened in our life to this moment right now are formed in our thinking. They are backlogged in the RAM somewhere in our subconscious, and as a result of which are shaping our very thoughts and ideas. And as a result of that, I can almost but guarantee it is limiting your thinking of what yet is to come. It is tailoring, it is templated your perception of capability. And as a result of which, the New Year's resolution that you've set for the new year might be aspirational, but it's probably tainted by all of the things that you've done previously that have led us to where we are today, and the challenges that we've faced and the uphill struggles that we've had to overcome, all of that thinking, all of that experience is now hampering your capability of thinking. So I don't know if over Christmas you got the opportunity to be able to spend any time either directly with or surrounded by, or at least in the presence of younger children. I'm talking about less than 7. I'm talking about the 3 to 6 year old market. And if you haven't, then over the next few days, I encourage you to seek them out. I encourage you to get in touch with that cousin or the next door neighbour or somebody down the street and just have a conversation, obviously with parents and all that type of stuff. But I encourage you to even if it's to go online and watch that old episode of The Secret Life of a 5-year-old on Channel 4 Dispatches that they ran all those years ago. I don't know if you caught it, but it was a brilliant little mini-series. But I want you to spend a little bit of time looking at or listening to or observing young kids. And let's just put this into context. You see, when a young child first receives their gift at Christmas, Santa has come along and left them a new present, as it were, then their imagination runs riot. They'll pick it up, they'll start playing with it, and all of a sudden there's a story, there's a hero, there's a challenge, it can fly, it's got superpowers. Their thinking is endless. They can imagine so many different things that as we grow up and grow older, they all seem to dissipate away and dissolve into, well, just make-believe or kids stuff. And as a result, we go into reality thinking. And the problem with reality thinking is no one ever changed the world whilst talking in realities. Now, if you've been following what started out over 3 years ago now as the ADDAZERO podcast before we did the rebrand in 2025, but if you've been following right from the very, very beginning, you'll know that I think it was maybe episode 4 or 5 maybe, but certainly in the single digits right back at the very beginning, I was fortunate enough to spend some time and interview a good friend of mine called David Heiner, and we talked at length about why smart isn't and why dumb is. If you haven't listened to it, it's a great interview, and I'd strongly recommend and advise that you, perhaps after today's episode, you go back and seek it out. It was a fascinating insight with regards to what I'm trying to convey to you in today's podcast. You see, Dave Heiner was so taken by this SMART analogy, the acronym that we use with regards to specific and measurable and achievable, realistic and time-bound targets, that he sought out the person who he cited as having first come up with that as an acronym, and then went to go and meet and interview him to be able to say, where on earth did this insight come from and how was it first evolved? I'm not going to give the game away. I want you to go back and watch the episode. But my point is that there's no way on this earth that you're going to achieve in your business what you're capable of achieving if on New Year's Eve, when you set your New Year's resolution, when you came back into the business over the last day or so, ready for 2026, that you set achievable and realistic targets. And yet the risk is that the longer you've been in business, perhaps the more challenges that you've faced over the last year or so are shaping your thinking and removing that childlike innocence of anything is possible and replacing it with achievable and realistic targets. I can almost go back with some certainty and say, on the day that you launched the business, what was your big idea? What was your big goal? What was it that you were aiming to achieve? How many lives were you going to impact? How many businesses that you were going to sell to? How many clients were you going to get testimonials from? What was the concept when you first started out in business? I can almost guarantee that even if you've already grown the business far bigger than you'd first envisaged on day one when it was, I've just got to try and make a living, I can almost guarantee that along that journey that you've dampened down each year the aspirations of what is possible. And therefore, today, I want you to stop and acknowledge that and park it for just a few minutes. You see, between Christmas and New Year, I spent a little bit of time sat at my desk with an open, big, large piece of paper, a big A3 sheet of paper. I think it was an A2 actually. I think we'd folded down an A0 and we'd turned it into something that was the size of almost the open and spare space on my desk. And at the top, in a title, I simply wrote 2 words: possibility thinking. And to do this, I then wrote out a short paragraph of all the successes that I'm grateful for that I've achieved in 2026. Let me say that again. I sat down between Christmas and New Year of 2025 and I wrote out under a title of possibility thinking all of the things that both I and my business have achieved, past tense, in 2026. I wrote it as if we were at the end of 2026. I imagined my future self. I projected where we were going to be in 12 months' time, looking back on the year that is yet to come. And by doing so, these imagines, these images, these thoughts, these suggestions start to float in and flow through and be written on the paper. Ironically, the more it happened, the more excited I became, the bigger the ideas became, the more the pen was frantic all over the page, listing all of the things that, well, if that happened, then this is bound to happen, and then this will happen, and that will enable, and before you know it, 2026 is going to be an incredible year, not only for my True North, but for all of those that we serve. Because I've seen it, because I've been there, because I've visioned it, because I've documented it. And I can now come back into the moment, into the here and now, and say, wow, there's quite a gap right now between where we are and where we're going to be in the next 12 months. We're going to have a bumper year. And these are all the things I now need to put in place in order for that to become a reality. And it's completely and utterly changed the way in which I'm going to approach my business over the next 12 months. You see, I've removed the limited thinking of all of the things and the challenges and the hurdles that we've had to overcome over the last year, over the last 5 years of Brexit and lockdown and wars all over the world and uncertainty and financial uncertainty and the Chancellor's budget. And I've put all of that to one side. I haven't allowed the reality of what has happened to influence the ability of what can happen. You see, the premise is that tomorrow's not yet happened. And yet if we utilise all of our thinking of what happened yesterday to shape what we believe is possible for tomorrow, then we're automatically putting restrictions on what we're capable of achieving. So what I want you to do before you finish this episode and get back into whatever it is that you're doing, whatever is left on the list, before anything else happens, I want you to take a few moments and just write down 24th of December 2026 and then make a note to yourself, not of what I want to achieve in the next 12 months, but 2024, 24th of December 2026, and I want you to write down, these are the things I'm grateful for of what I achieved this year. And then see what happens. Trust me, it is transformational, and it'll completely change the way in which you think about what you're going to do over the next 12 months. In my True North and the things that we work with clients to be able to achieve, we've got this acronym called BFAG, or big, fat, hairy, audacious goals. Things that perhaps we hadn't even considered. The amount of times I work with a client and say, tell me what good looks like. Now tell me what great looks like. Now tell me what world class looks like. Now tell me what leadership looks like. Tell me what breaking the mold looks like. Now 10x it. Possibility thinking allows us to be able to consider anything is possible, purely on the premise that it hasn't yet happened. So take some time, get a piece of paper, block out the current reality, sit in a place where you're not going to be disturbed, and let the pen create what the future is about to unfold. God bless, take care, I'll see you again next week. Let me know how you get on. Write in the comments, get back in touch with me, let me know what possibility looks like. I'd love to hear what your BFAG is and the things that you have achieved in the next 12 months. See you next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Accidental Business Owner podcast with me, Jay Allen. If today's episode sparked a thought, challenged your thinking, or gave you a new tool to grow smarter, share it, rate it, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a moment of transformation. God bless, take care, and I'll see you again next week.